The prospect presents a very real threat to Army analysts and trainers. If the Army goes into ground combat in the Middle East, we will face equipment from Russia, Iran and in some cases China, a senior Army official told Scout Warrior. The Army's live-fire combat exercises involve large-scale battalion-on-battalion war scenarios wherein mechanized forces often clash with makeshift, near-peer enemies or enemy weapons using new technologies, drones, tanks, artillery, missiles and armored vehicles. The Army is expanding its training and live-fire weapons focus to include a renewed ability to fight a massive, enemy force in an effort to transition from its decade-and-a-half of tested combat experience with dismounted infantry and counterinsurgency. Recent ground wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have created an experienced and combat-tested force able to track, attack and kill small groups of enemies, often blended into civilian populations, speeding in pickup trucks or hiding within different types of terrain to stage ambushes. The Army has a tremendous amount of experience right now. It has depth but needs more breadth. We're good at counterinsurgency and operations employing wide area security. Now, we may have to focus on mounted maneuver operations over larger distances, Ricky Smith, Deputy Chief of Staff, Training, and Doctrine Command, told Scout Warrior in an interview. While senior Army leaders are quick to emphasize that counterinsurgency is of course still important and the service plans to be ready for the widest possible range of conflict scenarios, there is nonetheless a marked and visible shift toward being ready to fight and win against a large-scale modernized enemy such as Russia or China. The Army, naturally, does not single out these countries as enemies, train specifically to fight them or necessarily expect to go to war with them. However, recognizing the current and fast-changing threat environment, which includes existing tensions and rivalries with the aforementioned great powers, Army training is increasingly focused on ensuring they are ready for a mechanized force-on-force type engagement. At the same time, while large-scale mechanized warfare is quite different than counterinsurgency, there are some areas of potential overlap between recent warfare and potential future great power conflict in a few key respects. Kinds of precision munitions, first used in Iraq and Afghanistan, are the kind of weapon which would greatly assist land attack efforts in a massive force-on-force land war as well. They could target key locations behind enemy lines such as supplies, forces and mechanized vehicles. Drones are another area of potential overlap. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan featured a veritable explosion in drone technology and drone use. For example, the Army had merely a handful of drones at the beginning of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Now, the service operates thousands and has repeatedly relied upon them to find enemy locations, spot upcoming ambushes and save lives in combat. These are the kinds of platforms which would also be a great utility in a major land war. However, they would likely be used differently, incorporating new tactics, techniques and procedures in a great power engagement. This is not back to the future. This is moving towards the future where Army forces will face adaptive enemies with greater lethality. This generation of Army leaders will orchestrate simultaneous combined arms maneuver and wide area security, Smith said. Nevertheless, many Army leaders now experienced with counterinsurgency tactics will need to re-examine tactics needed for major conventional warfare. You have a generation of leaders who have to expand learning to conduct simultaneous combined arms and wide area security, Smith said. The Army has to be prepared across the entire range of military operations. One of these would be near-peer operations, which is what we have not been fighting in recent years, Smith explained. The new approach to this emerging integrated training is called decisive action, senior Army leaders explained. Live-fire combat at Riley, Can, affords an opportunity to put these new strategies into effect, service officials said. Every morning I could put a battalion on the north side and a battalion on the south side, and just joust working combined arms maneuver. I can do battalion on battalion and it does involve combined arms live-fire, a senior Army official said. Because of the airspace that we have here, and use the S, I can synchronize from 0 to 18,000 feet and do maneuver and direct fire. This includes the use of drones, Air Force air assets, Army attack aviation along with armored vehicles, artillery, tanks and infantry units equipped for small arms fire, the official explained. Some of the main tactics and techniques explored during decisive action live-fire exercises include things like kill what you shoot at, move to contact, synchronize indirect fire, and call in 9-line, providing aircraft with attack coordinates from the ground, Army leaders said. Army developers explained that live-fire combat exercises now work to incorporate a wide range of emerging technologies so as to better anticipate the tactics, weapons and systems a future enemy is likely to employ. This includes the greater use of drones or unmanned systems, swarms of mini drones in the future, emerging computing technology, tank-on-tank warfare tactics, electronic warfare, enemy aircraft and longer-range precision weaponry including anti-tank missiles, guided artillery and missiles. In order to execute this kind of combat approach, the Army is adapting to more combined arms maneuver. This warfare competency seeks to synchronize a wide range of weapons, technologies and war assets in order to overwhelm, confuse and destroy an enemy force. Smith likened combined arms to being almost like a symphony orchestra where each instrument is geared toward blending and contributing to an integrated overall musical effect. In warfare, this would mean using tank-on-tank attacks, indirect fire or artillery, air defenses, air assets, networking technologies, drones, rockets, missiles and mortar all together to create a singular effect able to dominate the battle space, Smith explained. For example, air assets and artillery could be used to attack